technology pause. What we would like to do this morning is to have a conversation about stewardship. There will not be much of a presentation. We would like to engage in dialogue with you about our proposal for how to conduct the stewardship campaign this year, which begins today. I will not repeat my stewardship sermon for those of you who just heard it at 9, nor will I give you much of an advance on it for those of you who are 11 o'clock people. But it probably bits and pieces of it will come up over the course of the morning. The background I think we want to give to you for this conversation is this. It's very simple. It's that the Stewardship Committee and I agree strongly that what we want to do is move this church towards proportional giving. Proportional giving. That is that folk give a portion of their income. They understand their gift as a portion of their income rather than a dollar amount. Behind that is a much deeper concept, which is that of the spiritual side of giving. That one is giving back a portion of oneself, which is the only way I think a spiritually based giver can work. If you start from the premise that all that you have came from God, then your task as a steward of that time, talent, and treasure is to determine what portion of that you put back into the kingdom for God's work. It's not a question of the amount as it is a question of the portion. So your giving is at the top of the list, if you will. It's right up there with taxes. You're taxed based on your income, and that, for most of us, is taken out of your paycheck and you never see it again. That's a secular example of the same thing. Your portion given back to God comes right off the top. It's not something you get to budget or determine to choose as a dollar amount. But rather, you set. Oh, I didn't hand that. Didn't hand out the other chart. You set the percent of giving, 3%, 4%, 5% of your income that you're going to give back to God, and you do that right off the top, before taxes, before everything else. That payment goes as you direct. So that's a matter of spiritual discipline. That's something that you pray over to determine what the portion is. And then the action itself, week after week or month after month, is a matter of spiritual discipline. There are times for me when it works really well and times when it doesn't work well. When I was in transition this summer, I stopped my pledge payments for a while and then caught up again a little later on as I was able. Between moving expenses, medical expenses, and Linda not having a job, I was tapped out. I couldn't pay taxes either. So I had to stop, and now at the end of September, I'm caught up on all that. But it's a matter of discipline. It's a matter of spiritual discipline to make that happen. And I feel good about it. I've been doing sacrificial giving for a long time, and I don't think about it much anymore. It's something I do, and it does give me pleasure to do it. That's no joke. It really makes me happy to participate in the life of this church and my previous churches in that way. So we, the Stewardship Committee, chaired by Scott, and I, are challenging the parish to move towards proportional giving. And there are really two metrics that we're concerned with here. We're not putting out a budget figure and asking people to give to a budget number. We're not far enough along in the budget process to have a number, in any case. So we're working on two other metrics, which are mentioned on the sheet that I handed out here. One is new pledges. I don't have in my head the percent of people pledging, but it's under 60. It's about, I think it's 57, 58%. What's hard to get in that number is the number of members. The number of members is always a moving target and subject to debate by definition of what is a member. But we think that for all practical purposes, somewhere under 60% of the members of this church are pledging. Now, that's unfortunately all too common in the Episcopal Church. I don't remember the national average. I think it's a little over 60% or around 60%. But I think that's still not very good. Most other denominations are up around 65, 70, 75, 80%. And so we have a ways to go on that. It always surprises me, as a person who was raised in the Episcopal Church, with I was handling pledge envelopes when I was a child. My parents had me do that. That people would come to church week after week and not pledge. But many people do that. And so step one is pledging. And it's just making a commitment to give a certain amount of money to the church every week or month. That's step number one. And then step number two is to move towards proportional giving. So, of the two metrics we're looking at, one is to increase the number of pledgers, the percent of members who are pledging, by 10%. And that would be 18 new pledges. Now, in the course of a year, there is always some attrition. People leave, move out of town, there are deaths, and so the number of the pledgers of people who pledged in 2009 will inevitably go down for good reason. What we're concerned with is that number of new pledgers. Now, that may be a net break even, it may be a net increase, I don't know. I hope we have a net increase. But I think it's very important that people who aren't pledging start. If people who aren't pledging, we would suggest that they start at 3%. If they can go immediately to proportional giving, 3% would be a good starting place. If they have to start lower, okay. But at least pledge. The other metric we're looking for is the increase of giving as a percent of gross income. In the service sheet, which I brought, no, not that. Yeah, it's over there underneath my vestment, I think, in my, yeah. Those of you who've been to the 9 o'clock service have seen this. The 11 o'clock, you will see this. There's a chart in the service sheet. It's like this. It's very simple. It's a way of getting an approximate number for proportional giving. So it has income down the first column and then percents across the top. So if your income are $50,000, you find the $50,000 row and then move across to the right, and you can find a pledge by percent.